I look so much like my dad, maybe not now, but what about if I do this? During the Great Depression, they were extremely poor. His older brothers were alcoholics.
Barney, he makes it. He's got it. Let's take it.
Now, Barney, will you just simmer down? Now, they're all legitimate government deductions.
How'd you do that? Never mind. I saw the killer. We gotta get the fellas. Get me out of this thing.
Here, I'll just push it.
If you love classic American comedies, then you probably remember the unforgettable Don Knotts. You drop that rock and you get up here. He brought to life the endearing and bumbling Deputy Sheriff Barney Fife on the legendary 1960s sitcom The Andy Griffith Show. This role won him 5 Emmy Awards and made him a beloved figure across the nation. With his perfect comedic timing, nervous energy, and memorable facial expressions, he became a cherished household name. Don Knotts passed away in 2006, but his final moments were marked by something deeply emotional and entirely unexpected. His daughter, Karen Knotts, was by his side, holding his hands and offering comfort as he neared the end. She remained there, strong and devoted, as the man who brought laughter to millions took his last breaths. In a quiet and powerful moment, Don whispered a few final words to her. Karen kept those words private for many years, until recently. What she eventually shared was so surprising, it might leave you stunned. Keep watching to hear what she revealed. Long before Don Knotts became a legendary comedic actor with 5 Emmys, he was Jesse Donald Knotts, a boy from a troubled home in Morgantown, West Virginia. He was an unexpected addition to an already struggling family. His mother, Elsie Lucetta Knotts, was 40 when he was born, the youngest of 4 boys by a wide margin. His father, William Jesse Knotts, had been a hard-working farmer, but his life unraveled under the weight of schizophrenia and alcoholism. Just a month before Don was born, the family lost their farm. Life was extremely difficult. The Knotts household was not a comforting place. Don's father, plagued by mental illness, could become violent. Don later recalled terrifying incidents, including times when his father threatened him with a knife. To cope, he retreated into his imagination, creating a safer, funnier, and more forgiving world than the one he lived in. Don's older brothers, Willis, William, and Ralph, nicknamed Sid, were much older and didn't have a close bond with him. Like their father, they struggled with alcohol, and though they sometimes mistreated Don, he still looked up to them. Sid, in particular, had a natural talent for humor and could make everyone laugh, even during the darkest times. To Don, Sid was more than just a brother, he was a hero. Then tragedy hit. Sid died unexpectedly from a severe asthma attack. The loss left a deep void in the family and in Don's heart, one that never healed. Searching for solace, Don found comfort in an unusual companion, a dummy he named Danny. Danny was more than a toy, he was Don's imaginary friend and later, his comedy sidekick. With Danny, Don started performing little skits and discovered the joy and self-assurance that came from making people laugh, even if it was just pretend at first. During high school in Morgantown, Don began to come out of his shell. He was well-liked, funny, and even served as class president. But even with popularity, he continued to feel insecure, thin, poor, and like he didn't quite belong. Despite these feelings, his passion for performing only grew stronger. When he graduated, he was determined to pursue a career in entertainment. So, at just 18, he packed up his hopes, his dummy, and his bravery, and moved to Manhattan. But New York City wasn't waiting to welcome him with open arms. Don's first audition didn't go well, and the harsh reality of the big city wasn't easy for a shy young man without any connections. Though discouraged, he wasn't ready to give up. He returned home and soon enlisted in the U.S. Army during World War II. Ironically, it was during his military service that he discovered an unexpected stage. Performing in Army variety shows, he used humor to lift the spirits of fellow soldiers. It was his first experience with real performance, and audiences responded with enthusiasm. After the war, Don didn't let go of his dream. He decided to continue his education and enrolled at West Virginia University, where he earned a degree in education and a minor in speech. He graduated in 1948 and joined the Phi Sigma Kappa fraternity, where he refined his public speaking skills and continued to nurture his passion for performing. From there, new opportunities began to emerge. During his early career, Don spent almost 3 years in the Army, from June 1943 to January 1946. Rather than fighting on the front lines, he served in the 6,817th Special Services Battalion, a unit dedicated to entertaining troops. His mission was to make soldiers laugh, and he excelled at it, touring across the Pacific with the Army's traveling variety show stars and gripes. His role wasn't just comedic, it was honorable. By the end of his service, Don had earned several decorations, including the World War II Victory Medal, the Philippine Liberation Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal with 4 Bronze Service Stars, the American Campaign Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, the Marksman Badge for the M1 Carbine, and the Honorable Service Lapel Pin. Initially seeking an escape from small-town struggles and a difficult upbringing, Don left the Army with a sense of purpose and confidence. When he returned to West Virginia University, he was no longer just a student, he was a seasoned performer with stories to tell and timing shaped by military audiences. He fully embraced campus life, performing often and rebuilding his self-assurance. During this second college experience, Don's life changed on a personal level too. He fell in love. He met and married Kay Metz, a relationship that brought stability to his post-war life. With his degree in hand and his wife beside him, Don once again set his sights on New York City, this time with more experience and valuable connections from his military days. He began performing in comedy clubs, honing his act in smoky venues. He also landed a radio role on Bobby Benson and the B-Bar-B Riders, playing Wendy Wales, a fast-talking, sharp-witted character. His break into television came soon after, with a regular role on the soap opera Search for Tomorrow from 1953 to 1955. Though it wasn't comedy, it got him in front of viewers nationwide. In 1956, Don's career reached a turning point. He joined The Steve Allen Show, becoming part of a comedy ensemble that changed everything. He quickly became known for his portrayal of a twitchy, bug-eyed, nervous man in Allen's mock interviews. Audiences couldn't get enough. The character reflected Don's own anxious energy, but he turned those qualities into comedy gold. Behind the scenes, his natural chemistry with fellow rising stars made his presence even more memorable. Andy Griffith was gaining popularity, and from 1955 to 1957, he and Don Knotts shared the stage on Broadway in No Time for Sergeants. Knotts took on 2 comical parts, a naive preacher and a clumsy corporal named Manuel Dexterity. When the play became a film in 1958, Knotts reprised his role, charming audiences with his nervous energy, while Griffith starred in the lead. Playing an Air Force test administrator gradually losing composure around a country bumpkin, Griffith gave a glimpse of what was ahead. This marked the start of one of American television's most beloved comedy duos. Don Knotts had truly arrived. Don Knotts' first wife, Catherine Metz, came from a very different world. She was a minister's daughter, poised, intelligent, and raised with traditional values. On the surface, she and Don had nothing in common. He was a skinny, high-strung kid with a tough upbringing and a quick wit. But love isn't always logical. Don charmed her with his humor and persistence, eventually winning her heart. Catherine ended her engagement and began dating him. 2 years later, they married. But Don wasn't just looking for love, he had a dream he couldn't ignore. Ever since his childhood, when imaginary friends were his only crowd, he had wanted more than just a life of getting by. He wanted success. In 1949, newly married and carrying only $100, Knotts took another shot at his dream. They left West Virginia for New York City, a place that had already rejected him once. Sadly, history repeated itself. He went to auditions, but casting agents kept saying no. He was too odd, too nervous, too unlike the leading men they wanted. Even with years of experience performing in the military and college, his comedy didn't seem to land in New York. Still, he refused to give up. Slowly, minor roles started coming in, mostly on radio. One of his early steady gigs was on a children's western called Bobby Benson and the B-Bar-B Riders, where he voiced Wendy Wales, a quick-talking, sharp-witted side character. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept his dream alive. He wasn't an overnight success, but he kept working, steadily and patiently, building his career one joke at a time. After 7 years of persistence, Knotts landed his breakout Broadway role in No Time for Sergeants. But the most important part of that experience wasn't the role, it was meeting Andy Griffith. Their bond would shape the rest of Don's career. Things were finally turning around. Still, his success came with a price. He often found himself cast in comedic sidekick roles, funny characters who made the stars look even better. While many actors dislike being typecast, Don likely felt the same. Yet, his most iconic role would reinforce that very type. In 1960, Knotts saw Griffith in a pilot for a new TV series and jokingly suggested that he should play the deputy. Griffith agreed and connected him with the show's team. That moment changed everything. The Andy Griffith Show became the platform for the most famous and celebrated role of Don's life, the unforgettable, beloved Sergeant Barney. The show may have been a major success, but Don Knotts' personal life was far from smooth. His on-screen chemistry with Andy Griffith was undeniable. Just watch any rerun of the Andy Griffith Show on TV Land and it's plain to see. Off-screen, however, his wife struggled to fit in with the cast and crew. Reports suggest she didn't get along with Andy Griffith's wife, and, more troubling, seemed to clash with Don as well. Viewers saw a comedic duo that brought warmth and laughter into homes across the country, but behind the scenes, Knotts' home life was falling apart. He was dedicated to his craft and took comedy seriously, yet he seemed unable to give his family the same attention. Working 10-hour days on set began to take a toll on Don's family, especially his wife Catherine. As Knotts' fame and workload increased, so did the emotional distance between them. After 13 years of marriage and 2 children, they divorced. While his demanding schedule played a role, there were deeper issues. Don struggled with anxiety long before becoming a household name in the 1960s. During his early live performances, he often couldn't get out of bed for hours, or even days, before a show. He made a career out of playing nervous characters, but in real life, his fears were no laughing matter. His anxiety was so intense that doctors prescribed him medication in the 1950s. Like many in Hollywood, he became dependent on the pills, which only added to his difficulties. But anxiety wasn't his only battle. Knotts frequently convinced himself he was physically ill, experiencing symptoms of hypochondria. These imagined illnesses further disrupted his life, despite his efforts to cope. Eventually, he sought professional help, but by then, the damage to his mind was already deeply rooted. His fame brought him success, money, and attention, but his troubled past lingered. He wrestled with painful memories of his childhood and even expressed anger toward God in therapy, desperately searching for healing. Plagued by illness, anxiety, and depression, Knotts also suffered from insomnia. These mental health struggles ultimately pushed him to leave the Andy Griffith Show. Though he won 5 Emmy Awards for his role and shared a close friendship with Griffith, that wasn't enough to keep him on the show. While the series continued for several more seasons, Knotts officially exited in 1965, thinking the show would wrap after 5 years. With his contract complete, he began pursuing other ventures, including a movie deal with Universal. Though he considered returning, he chose instead to focus on his film career. Although Don Knotts stepped away from being a regular on the Andy Griffith Show, he did return for several guest appearances over the following seasons. Many fans felt the show's quality declined after his departure. According to his daughter, Knotts left the series because the daily grind of television work became overwhelming. While shooting a TV show is undoubtedly demanding, it wasn't the only thing keeping Knotts busy. Knotts had a reputation as quite the ladies' man. Even though his first marriage ended poorly, he didn't stay off the dating scene for long. On screen, he often played the sidekick, but off-screen he was known for dating many women. Other celebrities even regarded him as a true ladies' man. Though he was thriving romantically, fame and attention began to go to his head. In 1969, he took on the lead role in the risque comedy The Love God. He portrayed a magazine publisher who revitalizes his business by shifting to adult content, becoming a bachelor icon. Knotts was eager to break away from his clean-cut Barney Fife image, but he didn't carry the bachelor persona in the film as convincingly as he did in real life. While some critics praised the movie, it largely failed and many theaters opted not to show it. Audiences simply couldn't accept Knotts as a suave womanizer, and he never attempted such a role again. Still hopeful about leading man success, Knotts pursued more film work and signed a major deal with Universal. He starred in several comedies like The Incredible Mr. Limpet and The Reluctant Astronaut. Unfortunately, none came close to the acclaim of his television work, and he felt the difference. Despite his efforts to regain momentum, success eluded him. In 1970, Knotts debuted The Don Knotts Show, his own variety program. Expectations were sky-high, but the show failed to compete against other popular variety series of the time. It became clear that his career wouldn't follow the path he once envisioned. After years of dating many women, Knotts eventually found love again with Lori Chuckna. Their relationship was mostly kept out of the public eye, but his personal struggles continued. He had difficulty keeping his life in order. Just when things seemed more stable, Knotts began to notice troubling changes. Reading, driving, and recognizing faces became increasingly difficult as his vision blurred. A visit to the doctor revealed a devastating diagnosis: macular degeneration. He was rapidly losing his eyesight. The news shook him deeply and led to a personal crisis. According to his wife at the time, Laura Lee, the diagnosis inspired him to pursue a kind of bucket list. Whatever filled his days during that period, it was clear he was battling depression. He allowed his worry and frustration to impact those closest to him. This became too much for Laura Lee. After nearly a decade of marriage, they divorced in 1983. According to her, his looming blindness and the way he reacted to it was the final breaking point. Fortunately for Knotts, he could afford top-notch care and underwent eye surgery that eventually restored his sight. Sadly, more challenges were ahead. Like many, Knotts had his vices, and one was his smoking habit, a trend common among celebrities in his Hollywood days. To his credit, he eventually quit smoking as he grew older, likely as the dangers became clearer. However, the damage had already been done, and his efforts to quit came too late. In the early 2000s, doctors diagnosed Knotts with lung cancer, despite him having given up smoking over a decade earlier. Having overcome blindness, he remained hopeful about surviving this battle. Perhaps this hope influenced how he handled the situation. Even when chemotherapy was necessary, Knotts shielded his children from the gravity of his illness. Known for his humor, he likely wanted to keep the mood light. Knotts was confident he would beat the cancer. He held on to hope so strongly that he went through a major life change during this time. In 1987, while working on the sitcom What a Country, Knotts, then in his 60s, was assisted by a young actress, Frankency Yarborough, who helped him memorize his lines. Though the show wasn't remarkable, their meeting clearly made an impression. Despite their significant age difference, they fell in love. Frances said she was drawn to his vulnerability, and they married in 2002. Sadly, whether this was the love Knotts had always sought remains unknown, as their time together was cut short. In 2006, Knotts' health took a turn for the worse. Chemotherapy couldn't stop the cancer, and he faced complications related to his illness. His condition worsened beyond what hospital care could manage, leading to his return home. Despite facing death, Knotts kept his spirited humor alive until the end. His wife of 4 years inherited millions in property after his passing, leaving their time together richer than ever. What did Don Knotts' daughter say? If anyone lived for laughter, it was Don Knotts. Until the very end, he stayed true to what defined him, not fame, awards, or even his famous roles. What truly defined him was his remarkable ability to make people laugh, even in the darkest moments. In his final days, though hospitalized and weak, Knotts never let go of his lifelong role as the master of timing and humor. His daughter Karen recalled that even near death, he found ways to make everyone laugh. "He was making us laugh hysterically," she said. "He was literally dying, but he did or said something that had my stepmother and me bursting into fits of laughter." In that raw moment, Karen did something she now regrets. She ran out of the room, not because she was sad, but but because she was laughing so hard she couldn't bear the thought of doing it in front of her dying father. She thought to herself, I don't want to be standing there, laughing, in front of my beloved father who is dying. Years later, Karen shared the story in an interview with Closer Weekly. A director friend, Howard Storm, offered a different view. He said she should have stayed and laughed out loud, that's what comedians live for. Karen agreed, admitting he was right. She should have just stood there and laughed because that's exactly what Don would have wanted. Don Knotts was funny not only on screen but deep down in his core. In an interview with Emmy TV Legends, Don reflected on the source of his humor. He believed it came from growing up around comedy with his brothers, especially his brother's shadow. It became part of who he was. He never consciously thought about it, it just became instinctive. The word instinctive is often used to describe Don Knotts. His daughter Karen said being funny came naturally to him, it was like a gene or some uncontrollable natural funniness. He never rehearsed his warmth or studied his humor, it simply flowed out of him like breathing. Making people laugh wasn't something he forced, it was something he had to do. When Don Knotts gave his final performance, he did it just like all the others, with a smile, a witty line, and the hope of leaving his audience feeling lighter. Even though Karen stepped out during his last punchline, the laughter he left behind will continue to resonate through generations. Don Knotts didn't just leave memories, he left joy and unforgettable characters who feel like old friends reunited. Though time and distance caused Don Knotts and Andy Griffith to drift apart, the bond they forged during the Andy Griffith Show never truly faded. In Don's final days, that connection quietly resurfaced, just as strong and meaningful as before. Andy Griffith visited Don's bedside at UCLA Medical Center, determined not to let their friendship end without a proper goodbye. Although Don couldn't speak, Griffith knew his friend could still hear him. I was with him until about 6 o'clock or 6:30 that night, Griffith recalled in an interview with Larry King. Don couldn't respond, but Griffith spoke for both of them. He told Don he loved him and urged him to keep breathing. The nickname Jess wasn't widely known. Don had confided in Andy that his real name was Jesse, a name he never liked. Griffith, in that private farewell, gently reclaimed the name. He let me know at one time, Andy said, and I always called him Jess. In reply, Don moved his shoulders slightly, his way of saying, I hear you. I'm still here. It was a small gesture, but unmistakable. Griffith, ever the understanding friend, recognized it immediately. When asked if they knew the end was near, Griffith answered somberly, I'm afraid we did. I didn't realize it until about that time. While waiting near the emergency room, Griffith and others overheard a doctor telling Don's wife, Frankency, that Don's heart had stopped in the ambulance but was restarted. Yes, we knew, Griffith said. It was inevitable. Don Knotts passed away on February 24, 2006, at age 81. Many entertainers view him as an inspiration, regardless of how he felt about his own accomplishments. Although he didn't achieve everything he hoped, he did far more than many in his position. A statue honors him in his hometown of Virginia, and you can still watch his work on television and streaming platforms. What do you think about Don Knotts? Did his character on the Andy Griffith Show ever make you laugh?